Hello, my friend. In this video, I'm going to show you the absolute best way to create as many demos as possible very, very quickly, and why it's very important for you to be exporting those demos as quickly as you can. This is super important because the more demos you have, the more you'll be able to have finished songs. And the more finished songs you have, the more you'll be able to actually release those songs and have proper releases. And the more music that you release out into the world, the more opportunities that you're going to have for your music to actually get out there and be heard and maybe have your own viral moment and start really hitting the heights that you want in your music career. If you aren't putting out a lot of music, you're not going to be able to really make anything happen here. So it's really important to focus on creating a lot of great music. This is also super important because the more demos that you have created, the more you'll be able to reflect on each of those demos and get an idea of where you should be taking new songs as you're starting to create more and more new demos. And as well as when you're kind of looking at the release process of what songs you want to release, you're going to have a larger stock to pull from, and you'll be able to take out the absolute best songs. Not every song that you make is going to be amazing. So by creating as many as possible, it'll be a lot easier for you to pick out the absolute cream of the crop. And lastly, it's also super important to make sure that you are exporting these demos as quickly as you're finishing them, so that you actually have the audio file available. This way you can listen to it in a bunch of different environments. You'll have it on your phone. You can listen to it on walks, in the car. You can share it with friends a lot more easily. And if you are into the DJing thing, then you can also spin it in DJ mixes that you're doing, so you can hear it like right beside other tracks, which I think is super useful. And also, if you have the ability to, you can actually test it in front of audiences, which is super, super useful. So in order to finish as many demos as possible and export them as quickly as possible, thankfully, there are only 3 steps that you're really going to want to follow. First is whichever song that you're working on, you're going to want to push that song to the structure or arrangement mark as quickly as possible. So you have not just a loop, but a full 4, 5, 6 minute song. Second, you're going to want to quickly mix, master, and export that song to an audio file. And then third, you're going to want to create the opportunity to listen back as much as possible. Get that on your phone, get that on your DJ USB stick, put it on SoundCloud so you can share it around a little bit, those kinds of things. So now we're going to jump into Ableton, and I'm going to show you my process of moving through this point to the export stage as quickly as possible, so you have an idea of how you can do it yourself. Before we jump in, if you'd like a completely free 5-step song finishing checklist, it's a checklist I use to create dozens and dozens of demos, but 1 per week and 1 official release on Spotify and all that kind of stuff per month as well. Definitely check that out in the link in the description. This is actually going over a couple of the different stages of the checklist, so it'll be helpful for you to follow along with that and then use it in your own productions. But with that said, let's jump on into this. All right, so now we're in Ableton here. We're working on a project that I have been working on called Call for at least the time being. And the 3 steps that we're going to be going through that I'm going to be showing you here is to first push through to the 3rd step of the 5-step song finishing system, which is to get to the point where the song is structured and arranged. Then to quickly master and export the track, which is actually skipping step 4 and jumping over to step 5, which is the mix and master stage. And then lastly, we'll listen back, test into different DJ sets with friends, live environments, those kind of things, so that we can figure out what to fix with this song. So let's jump in to kind of where this started. It was originally this kind of loop that we have right here. So let's listen back to just the loop. Be my call. 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 That's more or less what it kind of sounds like. It's pretty cool. I'm pretty excited about it. And essentially just built up some interesting drums. We can listen to the drums on its own real quick. Super simple, nothing too crazy going on there. And then the bass is just kind of like a rolling bass line, sounds like this. It's sub layered with an electric guitar over top. And then kind of all the musical instruments sounds like this. It's mostly chord stabs and a couple different vocal little stabs as well, which I think sounds pretty cool. So that was basically rushing through the first step of the 5-step song finishing checklist, which is to get kind of that main core idea down. Then the idea after that is to expand and to explore. So I guess actually something I should mention for this track, the original bass line actually sounded like how it sounds kind of in the intro. So I'll play the intro for you real quick. So that's how it sounded first. It was just kind of like the bass was simply just kind of, it wasn't as sustained notes. It was just a little bit more plucky, a little bit more stabby. And then when I moved from this initial idea to expanding and exploring, that's where I kind of ended up with this cool, more interesting, I feel, fuller rolling bass line. Then the idea after that was to quickly get this song arranged as quickly as possible. And so I do have these kind of dummy clips up at the top, which is basically an arrangement for a song in your genre that you can follow when you are getting to the arrangement stage of yours. That's essentially the idea. So once the initial core loop was created, the idea was to simply copy and paste this across to create the individual sections by following this arrangement track at the top. So at the beginning, we have the intro, which is more or less just drums. Then it gets to where the sub kicks in. So this is where I just decided to have it so the bass was a little bit more minimal. Simple. Then it gets to a short break. So normally this break is double the length, but for this, as I was working on it, I decided I think it sounded cooler, and this is where the rolling bass line gets introduced into the drop. Very cool. Then it goes into a larger break, just kind of scaled back a bunch of the elements. Super simple, just following this kind of mapping template that I created. Then getting into the main loop that was originally created. Increase the energy with like rides and stuff in the second half. And then started building it down. And then just a simple outro. The idea here was to, as quickly as possible, develop the core idea, expand upon it a bit, and then quickly get it to the arrangement as quickly as possible. Then something I did as quickly as possible right after was also master it really quickly. And the reason for that is I wanted to be able to have this song done and finished in an MP3 kind of format as quickly as possible so that I could test it in a couple different environments. Once this song was finished, I was able to put it in a DJ set and hear it alongside other tracks, which was super helpful in hearing what could be improved upon in the mix, what elements might need to be added so that it stands neck and neck with professional songs that sound similar. That was awesome. And then also my housemate at the time in Vancouver right now came over with his girlfriend, and I was able to show them the track and get a little bit of feedback on it as well. And I think that's the importance of finishing the song as quickly as possible and getting it mastered and exported so that you can do these kind of things. And then I think I also might have had a few smokes and listened to it with headphones also. So there's a couple different opportunities that I was able to reflect on the tune, show off the tune, get feedback in order to improve it as quickly as possible. So quickly just run through the mastering chain. I'll make a separate video on this chain in detail at another point because I think it will be helpful to figure out how to master super quickly. But the way that I do it is I have a chain kind of already set up. There's a bit of compression here that's just going to kind of tame the peaks and glue everything together very slightly. If you look at it while it's pumping, it's just a little bit going on. Nothing too much, aiming for about 3 decibels of gain reduction. Running into a tape plugin, adding some saturation and kind of gluing things together, adding a bit of character there, very subtle. I have a saturation plugin that's usually off, to be honest, running into the Oxford Inflator, kind of almost doing a similar saturation thing. Drummer, whatever this thing is, the S7 III, which is something I found on a Disclosure live stream, which just kind of adds a bit more to the high end. Then we got some EQ going on here, cutting out some of the lows and the highs. And then lastly, running into a Pro L2 limiter, and that is basically the chain here that's running. And this is the way that I was able to quickly finish a song, have it so it's structured, then export it and have it somewhat mastered. And that way you're able to have it so that you can test it in different environments, whether it's in a mix. If you're able to play it live, that'd be really cool. The idea is to get feedback as quickly as possible. It's a lot better to get feedback on a complete song as opposed to a loop. The loop, it can be hard to really understand what the full song's going to sound like. So that's really the idea here. So now you should have a solid idea of how you can push your song to the arrangement stage and then quickly push it out by mixing, mastering, exporting it as quickly as possible. You should have an understanding of why this is super important and why you're going to want to be trying to work towards incorporating this into your kind of musician life. Making music is incredibly, incredibly important if you want to be a musician or an artist. It almost feels weird to have to say that and even talk about these things, but it is very, very important. Again, the more demos you have, the more releases you'll be able to put out, and the more releases you put out, the more you'll be able to actually push forward in your music career. So this might not be a complete package of how you're going to personally do it in your songwriting and process and your unique workflow, but hopefully this gives you an insight into how someone else is doing it so that you can adapt your own style along the way or use this as a starting point. And I think an absolutely great starting point would be to follow the 5-step song finishing checklist, free download, link in the description, all that good stuff, and use that as a framework to see how someone else is consistently dropping a lot of songs and consistently creating a lot of demos day in and day out. And use that as a starting point yourself for your own song finishing checklist. Build up your own. I think that's super important to adapt the things that you learn into something that works specifically for you and your unique style and all that. So again, link in the description to that 5-step song finishing checklist if you'd like to check it out. Other than that, hopefully you found this video useful. If you did, like and subscribe and all that good stuff. Otherwise, I will see you in the next video. Good luck on your next release. And yeah, bye.